Can John Key be trusted? Yeah. 2 days after Richard Prebble declares a conflict of interest, you sell all of your shares.
Well, actually,
Why, when Richard Prebble declared that there was a conflict of interest for him, why at that time did you not declare a conflict of interest?
Don't know.
You don't know why it didn't jog your mind? You don't know why you didn't think... It doesn't actually
jog my memory.
What part of it isn't a big deal?
Oh, well, look, I had, you know, it was knowledge in the markets or in Parliament months ago that I was a continuous shareholder over that period of time.
They're prepared to spend taxpayers' money digging the dirt on you. And that's another conversation that I will have with them. But I'm talking to you because they're finding dirt.
Madam Speaker, the member, like the Labor Party, opposed that sale. But, Madam Speaker, there was one person who fully backed that sale, and that was Mr Key, a director of Bankers Trust, which got the contract to advise the New Zealand government on that sale. That same year, the 1993 financial year, Bankers Trust, of which Mr Key was a director, pocketed $39 million in profit. Madam Speaker, ask yourself the question, who benefited from the sale of Transrail? Mr Key and his friends. We know furthermore, Madam Speaker, that in 2002, Mr Key's family trust bought 30,000 shares in Transrail. 30,000 shares. We know furthermore, Madam Speaker, that as Associate Transport Spokesperson for the National Party in 2003, Mr Key commented on whether the government should be buying back the track, and we can find no record, Madam Speaker, of Mr Key disclosing his financial interest as a shareholder.
For the first time, Mr Key's admitted he owned a great deal more than he'd previously revealed. And critically, the National leader owned those shares while he was pushing for another firm to buy into Transrail.
The share register shows that on February the 15th, 2002, a trust owned by John Key and his wife Brona buys 30,000 Transrail shares, estimated to cost around $108,000. 4 days later, on the 19th of February, the trust buys another 20,000 shares worth around $72,000. These are shares we were never told about. In July 2002, John Key is elected to Parliament and over the next few months becomes National's Associate Transport Spokesman. He questions Michael Cullen in writing and in the House about so-called secret meetings between the government and Transrail, but he fails to reveal his shareholding. Then on May the 7th, 2003, John Key buys another 50,000 shares, this time under his own name, for an estimated $22,500. A couple of weeks later, he meets with Rail America, which is considering a bid for Transrail. In his newsletter, John Key writes, "I hope the interest shown by Rail America will be picked up by others." He still doesn't admit he's a shareholder. On June 10, John Key sells his personal parcel of 50,000 shares for about $51,000, doubling his profit in just 5 weeks. A day later, John Key intensely questions Michael Cullen about the Transrail deal at a select committee. At that hearing, Richard Prebble declares his own conflict as a director and shareholder of Mainfreight. John Key says nothing. 2 days later, his family trust sells its shares, this time at a loss, recouping $48,000 of their original $180,000 investment. On June 18, Mr Key attacks the government over its plan to buy the rail tracks.
How many shares exactly did you and your family own in Transrail?
50,000 at the maximum point. Sometimes 25,000, sometimes 50,000.
Did you personally buy 50,000 Transrail shares in 2003 and sell them 5 weeks later?
Look, actually, maybe 100,000 from memory, yes. Sometimes 50,000, sometimes 100,000, yep.
Isn't that an issue you should be clear about?
Well, sorry, yeah, it was 100,000 in total.
You've only ever been honest about the fact that your family trust owned 30,000 shares. Why has it taken till now to front up about the extra shares?
Well, no one's ever asked me the number I've owned. I've always declared I own the shares. I have owned them, and I sold them on the date that I said. When I make a mistake...
But do you know why that is, John? Shall I tell you why that is? I'll tell you why that is. Because they're better politicians than you are. That is why it is. Because they are prepared to spend...
because I'm focused on what matters and they're not. They're prepared
but maybe that isn't what makes a good politician, John. I actually misled you. I didn't intend to mislead you. I had more shares than I thought I had.
Well, firstly, trust is when you make a mistake, and a genuine mistake, you front up about it.
Yeah, but you didn't,
I'm
did you?
doing that.
No, you're doing it now because you were caught out.
Regarding a grown-up conversation about debt, Prime Minister, on the 26th of January, I sent you an Official Information Act request asking, on a line-by-line accounting basis, could you please provide the detailed information which shows exactly to whom New Zealand has become indebted since National Government came to power in November 2008. And I asked in particular the information which confirms whether or not New Zealand has become indebted to the Bank of America, any subsidiaries of the Bank of America, or any lending institutions of any form which have connections to the Bank of America. I have yet to have an acknowledgement to this request. The reason why I'm asking, Prime Minister, is because according to the Register of Pecuniary Interests, you are a shareholder in the Bank of America, and are you personally profiting from New Zealand's growing indebtedness? And when will I get an answer to my question?
I'm not in a position to draw comment on that at this point, but I'm not in a position to actually comment about who those individuals are. I'm not in a position to comment on that. I'm not in a position to comment on that. I'm just not in a position to go into those details. I'm not in a position to comment about the individuals. I'm just not in a position to speculate that.